Back in 2012, Lexus was producing the LFA, a Japanese supercar with a carbon fiber chassis. The Chevy Corvette ZR1 was a 640 horsepower monster that could do 0 to 60 in 3.4 seconds. The electric car revolution was right around the corner with the first practical usable electric car, the Tesla Model S, which could do over 300 miles on a single charge and had a giant touchscreen that allowed you to browse the web as you drove down the interstate. Well, in 2011, you could also purchase something like this, a Ford Focus, which is undoubtedly one of the most basic modern cars I've ever seen. And I know I often preach on this channel that simpler is better when it comes to cars, but today I'm going to really put that to the test when we take a look at this Ford Focus. Let's start out here on the exterior of the Ford Focus, where we'll take a look at some of its styling cues. This is possibly the most bland looking car I have ever seen in my life. It looked like Ford instructed their design team to brainstorm the least inspiring possible design for this car, and you can tell it was built solely for transportation, to bring people from point A to point B. There was no excitement or sportiness to be had. It's no different than any other appliance like a refrigerator or a color printer. It simply does its job, it does it well, reliably, and that's it. No excitement to be had. Over here under the hood, you won't find anything all that exciting. Just Ford's 2-liter inline 4-cylinder engine that produces 134 horsepower, which actually isn't all that bad for a car of this size. It's mated to a 4-speed automatic transmission which sends power to the front wheels. Nothing exciting under here, so that's all I have to say. Up next, over on the interior, the basic theme continues. The first thing that catches my eye over here is the steering wheel, which looks way too big for a compact car and looks like it just came out of Ford's commercial pickup truck lineup. There's absolutely no buttons or convenience features over here on the steering wheel. It literally just looks like they ripped one out of an F-150 and plopped it right in this car. Another thing that struck my eye on the interior of the Focus is that most cars have 2 stalks coming out of the steering column. The right stalk controls your wipers and the left stalk controls your turn signals and maybe your cruise control. Now the Focus does have a turn signal stalk right here which also has the wipers on it, but this car has such little features that it doesn't have a stalk on the right. There's no cruise control or anything else here to necessitate a stalk because everything can be controlled via this left turn signal stalk here. I have never in my life seen another car that only has 1 turn signal stalk, not even my 1988 Volvo 240. Even that has 2 stalks, so this is crazy. The next thing you'll notice on the interior of this car is, despite its relatively modern age, if you take a look at the windows and you try to roll them down, you'll notice they're not automatic. They are manual hand crank old school windows, which is incredibly cool to see. Now, the owner has told me when the car was purchased new, they actually paid extra to get the manual windows, which is clinically insane, but receives my seal of approval. Now, the manual theme continues throughout the interior, where you'll also find manual mirrors. Manual mirrors in a 2011 automobile. That is absolutely crazy. In fact, I've realized after looking at the interior of this car thoroughly, the only automatic things I can find are the door locks and the transmission, which is crazy. Up next, and this is completely serious, I have just been informed by the owner that when this car was first purchased new, they attempted to have the radio removed to further add to the simplicity of this vehicle, but when that became cost prohibitive, they decided to keep this. However, upon taking a closer look at the interior, this is perhaps the simplest radio I've ever seen. Just a couple knobs and buttons in the center here, and a tiny little display screen that shows the channel that you're on. And just when you thought that this car had a feature, guess what? It doesn't, so deal with it. And it's just come to my mind, after spending a lot of time in the vicinity of this Ford Focus, I realized why Ford decided to call it a Focus. Because when you're driving a car, there's nothing to distract you on the interior, so all you can do is focus on the road. That's why it's called a Ford Focus. Well, we're nearing the end of this video, and I've shown you all the glorious features on this 2011 Ford Focus, and trust me, they are plentiful. Now it's time to take this car out on the road and see just how focused we can get. Let's take a look. All right, driving the Ford Focus. I just can't believe that this is a car that was produced relatively recently. I mean, it has less features than my 1988 Volvo 240, which was already a basic car 43 years ago. So, yeah. I have to say though, the Focus definitely drives better than I was expecting. It said on the window sticker that one of the standard features was a European-inspired suspension. And I can definitely say that I can feel that there's some, I wouldn't say sportiness, but it's definitely a composed chassis. It rides more solidly than you might expect. Now, I really like all the wonderful vibrations that come from the powertrain as you're driving along. It gives it that true economy car feel. So everything good that the suspension compensates for is undone by the vibration of the engine. However, the car is relatively zippy, as we'll find out in just a second here as I accelerate onto this highway. Now, part of the highway is under construction here, so there's no merge lane. We really do have to do a true 0 to 60 test. Woo! Okay, it's not as fast as I thought, but woo! It likes the revs. That was 6,000 RPM right there. And we're up and running. So it's definitely not slow by any stretch of the imagination. There are far slower vehicles on the road today. One thing I have to mention about this car is that it was owned by some elderly folks who were relatively easy on the vehicle. And what do I mean by that? Well, this is a 2010 Ford Focus. I know I've been calling it a 2011, but that's just because that is when this generation ended. It is a 2010 Focus. It has 37,000 miles on it. Some people put that many miles in their car in a year and a half. This thing is 14 years old, and it has 37,000 miles on it. So we are driving a pristine example. So everything that I'm touching upon, like the vibration, the interior plastics, will probably be far worse on a Focus with 200,000 miles than one with 37,000 miles. So everything in this car is in the best shape that you'll ever see in a Focus of this vintage. So yeah, just cruising down the highway here. We're on a very densely populated New Jersey state highway, and the car drives just great. I'm gonna accelerate here to change lanes. The engine noise is very loud, like uncontrollably loud, and it's not a good sound at all. It just sounds like a paint shaker or something. Like, it's very unsettling. I just cut off a Tesla, so you can still do that in this car. I'm outperforming all these vehicles around me. Oh my God, the engine noise is crazy. Oh, it's great. 4-speed automatic shifts smooth. I did a quick search on carcomplaints.com before I did this review, because I know the newer Focuses have to have their transmissions replaced like every 20,000 miles, but I actually found out that these are pretty reliable. So it's actually a good car as long as you take care of it. It's just very cheaply built and basic, but it does get the job done. And the best part about it is the ride quality. Let's take a look at some of the now, I don't have access to a twisty road right now as I normally do, but let's just see, swerving back and forth. The body roll is insane. Like, this car is so soft, like it's very plush, but that backfires on you as soon as you try and get any sort of dynamic driving experience going. Now we'll take this sharp exit here, and I'll take the turn at a relatively high rate of speed, just so we can feel that body roll. Oh, the Nissan Rogue in front of me is gonna fuck it up. But as we take this turn, and you just, the seats, first of all, the seats are just a slab of foam, so like when you take sharp turns, you just go like flying into the door, which is just great. Yeah, but overall, it's like, I really like cars like this because, as I said earlier, there's nothing to distract you, very simple. It would be a lot of fun with a manual transmission, I can tell you that for sure, because even with the automatic, like, the engine feels like it has a good amount of power, just a little loud. But yeah, overall, the car is, you know, very cheaply built. There's no features of any kind throughout the interior, but it does drive relatively well. Probably not as good as a Corolla or something like that, like from a Japanese manufacturer, but I think as far as Fords are concerned, if you're looking to buy an economy car, you could probably get a really good deal on one of these Focuses. They're relatively reliable. So yeah, that's all I have to say about it. Hope you enjoyed the video, and Happy New Year.